for May 18, 2017 to order. Can I get a roll call from members, please?
Alan Bucknam,
Present.
Dirk Bowden. Here. Emery Dorsey. Here. Donna Kimsey. Here. Janet Leo. Here. Scott Ohm.
Here.
Amanda Weaver. Here. Vivian Voss.
Present.
The next order on the agenda is the Pledge of Allegiance. Please rise. Is there a motion to approve the order of the agenda?
Chair, I move to approve the order of the agenda today.
Is there a second?
I'll second that.
Any discussion? Call for vote.
Motion passed 8-0.
Is there a motion to approve the order of the minutes for May 4th, 2017?
I move to approve the minutes from May 4th.
Thank you. Second.
Second.
Any discussion? Call for vote.
Motion passed 8-0.
Okay, this is the time for any person to speak on any subject not appearing on tonight's agenda. We have 3 cases tonight. If there's something that somebody wanted to speak of, has anybody signed up? Okay, we will conclude the public forum. I open the public hearing for case number MS-17-03, an application filed by HRE Development LLC for approval of a 2-lot minor subdivision with a right-of-way vacation and dedication on property zone mixed-use neighborhood and mixed-use commercial transit-oriented development located at 11818 West 52nd Avenue, and ask for the staff report.
Good evening. Before I get started, I'd like to pass out a replacement exhibit. This is an updated subdivision plat from the one that was included in your packet. There are no big changes, but this one is more current with some typographical errors that have been corrected and some other housekeeping items. So you've got the most current. So for the record, Meredith Record, Wheat Ridge Community Development Department, and I'm here to present case number MS-17-03, which is a request for approval of a 2-lot subdivision plat with a right-of-way vacation on property zone mixed-use neighborhood and mixed-use commercial TOD at 11818 West 52nd Avenue. The purpose of the plat is to split the development parcel in accordance with the new zoning classifications on it, to vacate existing right-of-way and dedicate new right-of-way in anticipation of property development. And I would point out that a neighborhood meeting is not, sorry, do this again. Back. Light's doing this. Yeah. Yep. It takes a village sometimes, right? Okay, so the purpose of the plat, again, is to divide the property in 2, to dedicate new right-of-way and vacate an existing right-of-way for Taft Street. And I would point out that a neighborhood meeting is not required for approval of a subdivision plat or submittal of it. I'd like to enter into the record the comprehensive plan, the zoning ordinance, case file and packet materials, and the contents of this digital presentation. And I would point out that all notification and posting requirements have been met. The property is within the city of Wheat Ridge, therefore the commission does have jurisdiction to hear this case.
So noted.
Thank you. So this is an aerial photo with our zoning map overlay on it. The property is located in this area right here. It contains 7.3 acres, and the extent runs from 52nd Avenue South to Ridge, and from Tabor Street west to Taft Court. The site was most recently used agriculturally as a home to Hance Ranch and has on it a house and several farm-related accessory structures. The property was rezoned from R1 to mixed-use neighborhood and mixed-use commercial transit-oriented development in August of 2016. The MUC TOD zoning, which is the piece on the south, the lighter blue color, is intended for areas within a half-mile of fixed rail stations. It permits a wide range of commercial and residential uses with some higher densities that support transit ridership. The northern portion, which is zoned mixed-use neighborhood, is established to encourage medium-density mixed-use development in which residential uses are permitted, and also a limited range of neighborhood commercial types of businesses. So on the existing map you can see in front of you, it does represent a prior plat that was approved and recorded back in 1953. At that time, the property was zoned R1, and it was intended for this to be a subdivision for R1 zoned lots with kind of the typical layout. There was a street that ran down the middle known as Taft Street, and it was envisioned that there be a row of houses on each side and then an additional row of houses adjacent to Tabor Street. The intent of, again, this, part of the intent of this plat is to vacate that existing plat, those existing lot lines, and to vacate that north and south street called Taft Street. The other properties that you can see in the picture are composed of different colors. Those do represent the different zonings in the area. Again, the subject site is zoned MUN and MUC TOD. To the west, on the west side of Taft Court, is an RV storage lot and parking for the commuter rail station with IE zoning, that's industrial employment. To the south is right-of-way for some of the improvements that occurred in the area. The yellow represents R1 zoning. And then across Tabor Street on the east side is sort of a greeny ochre color that represents R2 zoning. R2 allows single and two-family residential development. And then to the north across 52nd Avenue is unincorporated Jefferson County. So the southwest portion of the site we're looking at tonight is catty-corner from the new Wheat Ridge Ward Station, which is the end of the line station for the Gold Line. The Gold Line is slated to begin operation in 2017. We don't have a specific date on that, but hopefully that keeps moving forward. As a result of construction of the commuter rail station and anticipation, there has been a large amount of public improvement already to the area. That would include the realignment of Tabor Street, installation of a traffic signal at Tabor Street and Ridge Road, construction of Taft Court between 50th Place and 52nd Avenue, and then, of course, construction of the commuter rail station and the infrastructure built to support it. So let's take a look at some slides of the area. I have to admit, these were taken last fall and look very different today when I was out on the site with the snow. But this is looking southeast towards the rail station improvements. This is looking north on Taft Court up to 52nd Avenue. The property that we're looking at tonight is over on the right-hand side. This is looking west along 52nd Avenue. This is looking south from 52nd at the existing home on the property. This is looking south along Tabor. Again, the property we're considering tonight is on the right-hand side of the image. This is looking west to some of the existing buildings on the property from Tabor. And this is looking southwest towards the Tabor Ridge intersection. And you can see over on the left-hand side the traffic signal that was installed as part of it. So the property was rezoned in August, and the next step of the process for accomplishing the mixed-use development was approval of a concept plan. The concept plan shows the entire property being split in half by a new street called 51st Avenue. And 51st Avenue generally defines the two different zonings on the property. So again, this is 51st Avenue. The portion to the north is mixed-use neighborhood, and the portion to the south is mixed-use TOD. The northern planning area was approved for up to 80 townhome units, and we had two different scenarios on the southern piece, the mixed-use commercial TOD. One was for approval of a 250 multi-unit apartment complex, that is this sheet, and then a second sheet allows an alternative, the same uses on the north with the 80 townhouses, but this one instead allowed for 60 townhome units on the south side of 51st Avenue. The concept plan also addresses traffic circulation on the site, open space, and drainage. This is the first page of our 3-sheet plat set that we're looking at tonight. This is what I call the declaration page, and it contains legal descriptions, signature blocks for the owners, recording blocks, and notes. This second page is intended to vacate all of the easements that were dedicated in 1953 when the property was originally platted, in addition to Taft Street, which runs north and south between 52nd Avenue and Ridge Road. This third sheet is actually what divides the property. Again, we're showing the configuration of the two new parcels, which do follow the zoning that was approved for the property back in August. 51st Avenue is extended from Taft Court over to Tabor. This will be a full-width dedicated street with all appropriate public improvements. And again, on the north, the mixed-use neighborhood, which is Lot 1, contains 3.91 acres. Lot 2 is the MUC TOD parcel and contains 2.66. So with regard to the division of the property, the location and width of the new street, which is 51st Avenue, is consistent with the planning areas depicted on the approved concept plan and in accordance with the zoning that was approved for the site. There's been a lot of comment about the extension of this new street, east and west, 51st Place, 51st Avenue. And I tried to pull a couple excerpts from some of our guiding documents which depict the area. This is a future land use map that was taken from the Northwest Sub-Area Plan, which we updated in 2013. The site that we're looking at tonight is in here. And you can see that they've got the grid of streets being proposed with Ward Road over here on the west, 52nd at the top, Tabor over here on the east, but then also some new street connections. One is 51st that would go between Ward Road and Swadley, and then a couple north-south streets, Vivian Street at this point location, Union Court at this location, Taft Court, which is already built. This is another diagram from that sub-area plan. It's the bicycle and pedestrian circulation plan. And again, it's showing the area bounded by Ward, Tabor, 52nd, and Ridge. The subject site we're looking at tonight is right here. And again, you can see that they're calling for extension of 51st Avenue between Tabor and Ward. The sub-area plan identifies the following goals. Number one, there's a goal to increase the number of streets for internal access for businesses, residents, and transit users. It encourages a grid of north, south, east, west internal streets with pedestrian amenities. And there's also a goal for implementation of complete streets with construction of roadway, curb gutter, separated sidewalk with an amenity zone in accordance with the streetscape manual. What's being proposed on the plat, which is 63 feet of width for 51st Avenue, would accommodate all of those improvements when the property is developed. requirements of this approval includes vacation of the existing right-of-way that goes north-south through the property known as Taft Street. And we do have specific criteria in the zoning code that we use when we do an evaluation of whether street right-of-way should be vacated or not. We don't do these very often, so I thought I'd put those up on the screen and I'll answer the questions. The first criteria is that the proposed vacation will not leave any adjoining land without access to an established right-of-way. And the response would be the vacation of the right-of-way for Taft Street and subsequent dedication for West 51st Avenue is definitely different from what was envisioned in 1953 when the property was platted. The intent of the zoning, which was approved in August, was to allow for medium-density residential on the north portion with higher density on the south portion. In addition to 51st Avenue, Ridge, Tabor, and Taft Court will provide adequate access to the property, so staff concludes that this criteria has been met. Oops, excuse me. The second criteria is that the proposed vacation, or whether the proposed vacation is in conformity with the most recently enacted goals and policies of the guiding documents of the City of Wheat Ridge. What I talked about just a few minutes ago, showing the different plan components with 51st Avenue, does support this. And while the vacation of Taft Street is not specifically addressed, the extension of 51st between Tabor and Ward is. The third criteria is that the proposed vacation will not have a negative impact on the infrastructure. And again, the sub-area plan, which was updated and reapproved in 2013, calls for both north-south and east-west connections within the super block, which is basically the planning area from Ward to Tabor, 52nd to Ridge. If Taft is built, which again would be another north-south street, it would result in substandard block widths and would prohibit the density-sensitive development that was envisioned with the zone change that was done last summer. And finally, that adequate easements have been reserved for use and are maintained by the city or other utility agencies. Again, we're vacating all the previously approved easements as well as that right-of-way. And since the property was really never developed as envisioned when it was platted in 1853, there were just the house and the agricultural buildings on it, and therefore elaborate utilities were not extended. It was just simply the service lines for those structures. And staff does conclude that the criteria for evaluation of a vacation do support the request and that all requirements of the sub-regulations have been met. So as far as process for development of the property, again, the first thing we did was there was a zone change from R1 to mixed-use neighborhood in MUC-TOD that was reviewed by Planning Commission in June of last year. You did recommend approval, and it was approved by City Council on August 8th. The concept plan, which was reviewed administratively, was approved in March 2017, and it is consistent with the vision for the property as supported by our guiding documents, and it's also consistent with the approved zone change. The plat, which is this application, went through our standard referral process. All of the agencies contacted and responding have indicated no concerns and that the property can be served based on improvements installed at the developer's expense. It's also consistent with the zone change and the concept plan. Tonight, you are reviewing this plat. You will be giving a recommendation to City Council, and that public hearing is scheduled for June 12th. So if the plat is approved, the next steps would be approval of a site development plan for either the north or south portion of the property or both, which will be reviewed administratively. There is probably also the very high likelihood that there will be an additional plat document, and that would require public hearings in front of Planning Commission and City Council, and then the final step would be building permit. So staff is giving a recommendation of approval for the following reasons. All requirements of the subdivision regulations have been met. The plat is consistent with the zoning and concept plan for the site. The request is consistent with goals and objectives of the comprehensive plan and the Northwest Sub-Area Plan. All agencies can serve the property with improvements installed by the developer. And I added one more reason that wasn't included in your motion, and that is that the criteria used to evaluate a right-of-way vacation do support the request. So that concludes staff comments. I'd be happy to answer questions.
Thank you for that presentation. Let's hear from Commissioner Bowden.
No questions.
Commissioner Bucknam,
No questions, thank you.
Commissioner Dorsey,
No questions here.
Commissioner Kimsey,
No questions.
Commissioner Voss,
Nothing, thank you.
Commissioner Leo. No questions. Commissioner Weaver. I have no questions. Thank you. I would now like to open up the citizens forum. Are there any citizens that have?
Well, first we should probably hear from the applicant.
Oh, yes, sorry about
Here
that.
in the audience.
Would the applicant like to make a presentation?
Good evening. My name is Noah Nemers. I'm with Baseline Engineering, 1950 Ford Street, Golden, Colorado, 80439. I don't have a presentation tonight. I think staff did a... Sure. Is this not on? Noah Nemers, Baseline Engineering, located at 1950 Ford Street, Golden, Colorado, 80401. And I'm representing the applicant tonight. We don't have a presentation. I think staff did an excellent job presenting the case, so I'm available if you have any questions.
Thank you. Do any of the commissioners have any questions for the applicant? Okay, thank you. We'll now open up the citizens forum. Looks like there's one person signed up. A Miss Connie Berg. What? Oh, you didn't want to speak, okay. Okay. Is there anybody else from the audience that would like to come forward to the podium and speak on this case? Please come forward. I can't answer, we can't answer any questions unless you come to the, we need a public, if you could state your name and address for the record, please.
My name is Mary Taylor. I live in Rainbow Ridge at 5295 Tabor Street. And my question, my first one, probably not done for the night, but when I heard this reporting and they were saying that they had everything compensated with the through street going over to Tabor, 51st Avenue, I wondered as they look at this, what percentage of the traffic do they think is coming from Wheat Ridge, because that's a dividing line right there, versus Arvada? Because Ward Road is a main thoroughfare that is supporting an enormous amount of development in the northwest portion of Arvada, and it's just more traffic. And I just wondered, like, this is all green lights for Wheat Ridge. What percentage of that should come from Wheat Ridge in your anticipation of the traffic?
Was your city Wheat Ridge or Arvada?
I live in Arvada, but
Okay.
I'm trying to understand, like Wheat Ridge is thumbs up. I just wonder when the Department of Transportation or whoever put together this, the train line, that's an Arvada stop, I think. I don't care what town it's in, but where does the traffic come from? Like, is that gonna, what are you anticipating that increased traffic is in Wheat Ridge versus what it is in Arvada? Does that make sense?
I think.
Where do the people live that are going to take the train and drive on the roads and increase the traffic? That's my question.
I do have Mark Westberg from our Public Works Department who has worked with the traffic information. I guess my initial response is to say that, hopefully the people that live in the new development on the property will be using the transit, and so there will be some generated there. But
I wonder, while we're on that subject, because I know that was part of the allocation, I wonder where they'll buy their food. They can't go to a food store without getting into, I guess you could take public transportation to Target, but anyway, I'm getting off subject and I apologize.
Did you want to chime in, Mark?
Yeah, so the RTD back in the day, like in 2009 or something like that, did an environmental impact statement that was then approved and stuff by the folks that do that sort of thing. The vast majority of folks that are coming to the station to ride the rail are going to be from the north and from the west. Certainly, there might be some people from your neighborhood that might decide to go down and ride the rail. Certainly, some people from this new development and from the neighborhood to the east of Tabor Street might come to this development. There might even be some people from east on Ridge Road that might come to this station to ride it. They don't anticipate a lot of ridership coming from the main part of Wheat Ridge, which is sort of south of I-70, just because it's kind of hard to get to this station from there. So the vast majority of folks that they think are going to come are coming from the north and the west. And that's the reason that we had them connect up Ridge Road through to Ward Road so that people coming from the north, could come down, either turn at 52nd or turn at Ridge Road off of Ward, and then either go directly to the station or then come down the new street that we had them build, which is Taft Court. Does that all make sense?
It does make sense. And so did Arvada say thumbs up, all that increased traffic is good on Ward Road, or did they not get put into this equation at all because your only concern is in the Wheat Ridge property?
So Arvada and Wheat Ridge and Adams County and Denver and Jefferson County and all those folks were involved back when the planning for this station happened back in 2010, 2011, and 2009 timeframe. And we've actually been meeting with Arvada and Jefferson County to talk about things that'll be done in the station area as time moves forward. So we're definitely talking with our neighbors about traffic and things like that. I think on your part of Tabor Street, I wouldn't see a lot of people using that part of Tabor Street to get to the station, except for the people that maybe live in your neighborhood. It's not a convenient cut through for folks.
We'll see. We have a traffic study that they already did 3 months ago, and they'll do another one 3 months after it opens. But anyway, that wasn't my point.
Okay.
And while you were speaking, I had one other thought, and now I lost it. So I'll raise my hand again when it comes back to me. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. Is there anybody else that'd like to come forward to the podium? Please come. You could state your name and address for the record, please.
Gary Duncan, 5355 Union Way. Thank you for the opportunity to speak.
Is that in Wheat Ridge or Arvada?
That's Arvada.
Okay, thank you.
Right next to the development. Again, our concern is the traffic, because it's not just this unit. The layout from the standpoint of working off 51st Avenue within this development looks very good. Here's what's on the agenda. There are 2,700 multifamily units planned between 58th Avenue and 44th Avenue and Ward Road and Kipling as of this date, and I can give you those references. Additionally, there's been other studies done showing that anywhere from 2 to 7% of local residents use light rail. No doubt there will be light rail. I'm looking forward to using it myself. I've already used it to go to the Rockies games. But the issue is Ward Road, the traffic, and I would encourage the council and anyone else involved to visit Ward Road, 44th, Tabor Street, 52nd Avenue during rush hour. It's a nightmare. Kipling is already a nightmare, and my understanding is just now being studied what to do with the interchange of I-70 and Kipling. 44th backs up on Ward Road in the evening. You can't turn. It takes multiple lights. Tabor backs up now because people are trying to go down 44th to avoid Ward. And from my understanding of talking to the folks at Wheat Ridge, there's really no plans to widen Tabor or 52nd Avenue. There is plans, I think, to put in a sidewalk. That's not going to alleviate the traffic. So my question is, could there be, or is there going to be a more current impact study on the traffic? Because it's not just these 200 units or however many units it's going to be. There's 2,700 units going to impact Ward Road, 52nd, and Tabor in that immediate area. It's a major problem.
Okay, thank you. Would you like to answer that, Mr. Westbrook?
Yeah, Ward Road's a state highway. We certainly have a vested interest in what's happening on Ward. Part of the meeting we had with Arvada and Jefferson County was talking about Ward Road and what to do with it. Some of the other conversation we had was maybe what to do with 52nd. A lot of the interest that we've seen in the past on 52nd is getting sidewalks added to 52nd so it's safer for the kids to walk to school. We're going to likely pursue a Safe Routes to School grant for 52nd from probably, I don't know, maybe Tabor west to Ward Road is something we'd be looking at doing. For those of you that are not from Wheat Ridge, we did have a ballot initiative passed. We're going to be spending $12 million in that area. Likely some of that will be on street improvements and things like that. We've talked about getting a signal at Ridge Road and Ward Road. We've talked with Arvada and Jefferson County about grade separating the intersection of the BNSF line in Ward Road, so that, because that's a huge issue there in the morning and the afternoon when the train runs through. So we've talked about a lot of those kind of things. We don't know how we're going to spend the $12 million yet. We're still sort of in that figuring out stage, but once we know those things, we'll have some meetings on that and stuff. And you know, we're working on Wadsworth right now as our big focus today, which is a big deal. We've got $39 million so far and still need a little bit more. CDOT has been working on the Kipling I-70 interchange for several years now. They're going through their environmental process right now to try to wrap that up, and then they've got to find construction dollars for it. I don't know that anybody right now is really looking heavily at Ward Road. As bad as it is, I don't know that it's as bad as Kipling and Wadsworth are right now, at least according to the congestion scores that we see. So we're sort of working our way west, and we'll get to Ward eventually, we hope, and maybe sooner rather than later, depending on how everything goes with the 2E money.
If I may comment, thank you for that explanation. I think it'd be better if these plans were in place and even under construction before we add more cars. The average ownership in Denver is, I think, 2.3 or 2.7 cars. I can't remember. And we live in an outdoor area. Light rail is wonderful. I voted for it. I support it. But people are not going to give up their cars and their Jeeps and SUVs to go skiing and do the other things. So we're not going to reduce the number of cars. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, you can please come forward again. You can just state your name for the record since you.
Mary Taylor, 5295 Tabor Street, Arvada, and I have great news. I remembered my question. If I heard you correctly, and I may not have heard it correctly, but I thought that it was stated that in that development that will fall between Taft and Tabor and 52nd and Ridge, the northern portion of north of 51st Avenue is 3.9 acres, 4.0, 3.9, I believe. And I think they called that Lot 1. And I wondered if you could repeat the density of what is planned on Lot 1. I'm not sure I got that down properly. Am I conveying that?
Yes. So, yes, Lot 1 is 3.91 acres. They were, the concept plan did approve a density for, I believe, 80 units on that northern portion.
Thank you. And that's townhomes?
Yes.
Right.
As far as we know.
So here's the reason I came up now. Here's my question. If I wrote my notes properly on the southern portion, it's 2.66 acres. And
Yes.
I believe you said 250 multi-unit apartments or 60 townhomes.
Yes.
Big difference. How do I influence 60 townhomes over 250 apartments, which will be perpendicular to the 270 apartments 2 blocks down on Ridge Road? So that's a big difference for an impact. How does one try to influence, or what will make that decision, whether it's 250 multi-unit apartments or 60 townhomes?
Well, it was approved, so there was some flexibility in that. Ultimately, I believe it would be up to the developer and the market for what is being built. That's not a decision I as staff would make.
So they have free reign at this point for either of those options, whatever suits them. Okay, thank you for clarifying.
And so tonight, we're just approving the plat. We're not approving a concept plan, or density is only the, for sake of better words, just the property lines. Anybody else from the audience would like to come forward? Just please state your name and address and city for the record.
Connie Berg, 5195 Swadley Street, Wheat Ridge, Colorado. I wasn't gonna speak, but when I feel like we got Arvada people up here and I feel like I know how they are and they don't really want to listen to people from Arvada, so I figured somebody from Wheat Ridge better get up and talk. The height of the town, what is the height restriction on that? The townhomes can be how tall?
On the north end, they're restricted to 35 feet. The density, or the height allowance on the southern piece, which is the denser piece closer to the actual station, I believe, can be up to 6 stories high. It is extremely doubtful that the property would be able to support something that high, but again, that's the maximum.
And so, but you had just also said that the developer has free reign, so they can put 6 stories in there.
They could.
What about parking? What are we doing about parking? I know that because it's transit-oriented development, you figure that people are gonna have less cars. You only need to provide parking spaces for like 1.5 cars per unit as opposed to the regular 2 cars per unit. What are you gonna do about parking? Are we gonna have to have permits? I live at the corner of 52nd and Swadley Street. I already only have like 1 parking spot on the street in front of my house because we have no sidewalks. 52nd is barely wide enough for 2 cars if they scooch way over to the side. What are we doing about parking?
Well, we're actually under review, and comments have not been finalized yet, so it's something we're still looking at.
Okay, because that's gonna add a huge number of cars, and that's a little tiny space. I agree with the gentleman who said, if you haven't been out there, go out there, take a drive, look at there's a little tiny spot that you're talking about adding hundreds of units and hundreds of cars. So go take a look at it. It's barely wide enough to.
As far as Tabor Street goes, the developer will be responsible for doing some widening improvements along there. There would be parking allowed along Tabor. There's also parking pull-offs on Taft Court that were built. So.
Which is sort of an odd question. I'm glad you brought up Taft Court.
And Ridge, pardon me?
I'm glad you're and so Ridge, there's parking spots on Ridge as it cuts through the park and ride. Taft Court, how wide is Taft Court as it goes down into the?
We really need to try to stay back on the topic of, this is just we're approving the plat tonight.
Okay,
Just the property line, and we're kind of more towards the site, which we don't have in front of us.
I hear you. Just, my concern is, I'm with, if we can get 60 townhomes on that north side, or on the south side instead of all those apartments, that would be great. And please, think about the parking. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anybody else from the audience that would like to speak on this particular case? Seeing none, I will close the citizens forum. At this point, I would entertain a motion.
I move to approve case number MS 17-03, a request for approval of a 2-lot subdivision plat for property generally addressed as 11818 West 52nd Avenue for the following reasons. All requirements of the subdivision regulations have been met. The proposed plat will facilitate redevelopment of the site consistent with the zone change and concept plan. Utility districts can serve the property with improvements installed at the developer's expense.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
There was a second? Okay. Any discussion?
I've got just a couple of, can I just get some clarifying questions answered from staff? On Tabor Street, I'm noting on the plat on sheet 3, 45-foot right-of-way on Tabor. Does that include the 11.5-foot right-of-way that's dedicated by this plat, or is that 11.5 feet being dedicated in addition to the 45-foot right-of-way?
In addition.
Okay, so our total right-of-way on Tabor would then become 56 feet at its narrowest point? Okay, that's great. And is there what's the timeline for is there some sort of timeline or any other plans in the works for extending that 51st Avenue right-of-way to Swadley, as you had mentioned, and then all the way again between Taft Court and Ward? Or is that just still, I know the grid is something that's part of the long-term plan, but is there anything a little more specific coming up?
Well, the developer will be responsible for the section between Tabor and Taft Court when the property develops. The other pieces of it will get implemented as additional properties develop west toward. A lot of vacant land in there that will each do their piece.
And had you met?
So, sorry, Mr. Buckman, in your statement, you had mentioned extending to Swadley. There's no plans to extend 51st to Swadley.
Okay, thank you. I think I was confused during the
That might cause
presentation.
some panic in the audience.
Sorry.
There's only plans to extend 51st from Tabor Street to Ward Road. There's no plans to do anything to the east of Tabor Street at this point.
All right, thank you.
So I just wanted, in case someone heard Swadley, they wanted to panic.
Yeah, thanks for clarifying. All right, that's my clarification. That has my answer. Thank you.
Any other discussion from the commissioners? Go ahead.
I just wanted to clarify for everyone, I really appreciate everyone who got up and spoke. There's a couple of things. First of all, the next step is this goes to council, correct? And then at some point, we will go through an actual site plan. If things are approved, it will be a site plan?
The site plan will be reviewed administratively, but there will be a plat that goes, again, through the...
Is that an appropriate time for people to come back and have the discussion of understanding how many homes, all the questions that came up tonight that we're not discussing tonight, but people have questions on? What can you just clarify a little bit as far as where people could go to either get more information on the traffic, since this is sort of a multi-district thing that's been happening? And
Sure. Well, this is a case, and all of the case file is available for review in the city offices. I would suggest if people want to do that, they call and make an appointment so we can have it ready for them. The next piece of the plat, if they're looking at doing the townhouses, they will show lot layouts, and so that would be an appropriate time to comment.
Okay.
Did that answer?
yeah, and that'll be listed like it is listed with
Right.
meetings
We'll
and
do
things.
a posting, a publishing, letter noticing again.
Okay. And will traffic be discussed at that review?
I would assume yes, but I mean, what we wouldn't be rehashing is the zoning on the property.
Right. Understood.
That is what it
Understood.
is, so.
Yeah, I was just hearing other questions besides the zoning. That's all, thanks.
Any other questions?
I
Okay,
did have one
yes.
comment. As part of my presentation, I did add one more reason for approval, and that was because of the vacation criteria supported the request. So for the motion maker, if you don't mind adding that on, I think that would be appropriate. Ms. Leo?
Could you maybe perhaps put that back up on the screen? That might-
Sure.
So it would be the last bullet point.
In addition to the request to approve case number MS-17-03, the additional reason for approval would be to the criteria used to evaluate a right-of-way vacation supports the request.
And then the person that made the second, do you agree?
Yes, I do.
Okay, thank you. Any discussion? Call for a vote.
Motion carried 8-0.
Thank you, everyone.
Chairman, may I make a 5-minute request for recess?
Yes. 5-minute request for break. Okay, I'd like to open up the public hearing for case number WZ-17-02, and applications filed by Brennan Gustafson for approval of a zone change from residential 2 to residential 1C located at 6610 West 31st Avenue, and ask for the staff report.
Thank you. Before we begin, I'd like to pass out a letter that staff received today, and I will enter this into the record as well. I'll give you a few seconds to read over it. It's part of the case file. So, good evening. For the record, Zach Wallace Mendez. I'm a planner with the Wheat Ridge Community Development Department. Tonight I will be presenting case number WZ-17-02, request for approval of a zone change from residential 2 to residential 1C on property located at 6610 West 31st Avenue. I would like to enter into the public record the contents of the case file, the zoning ordinance, the comprehensive plan, this digital presentation, as well as the letter which was received today and passed out to the commissioners just now. The property is within the city of Wheat Ridge. All appropriate notification and posting requirements have been met, and therefore Planning Commission does have jurisdiction to hear the case.
So noted.
The subject property is outlined here in red. It is located at the southwest corner of 31st and Newland. The parcel is approximately 15,800 square feet in size, roughly rectangular in shape with no irregularities, as far as shape or topography. The width of the frontage along Newland is approximately 106 feet, and the frontage along 31st Avenue is approximately 148 feet. The current zoning on the property is residential 2, and is largely surrounded by a variety of residential properties and zone districts. R2 extends further to the north and to the west and to the south of the property, kind of this darker green here. There is some R1 to the west, which is a church.
You mean the east?
I'm sorry, yes, to the east.
Thank you.
Thank you. Which is this church here, and then it also extends a little south, and southwest of the property. There is some current R1C along Newland and 30th Avenue, and then also some R1A over on Lamar. All of these are just different the R1 series is all single family. The R1A, B, C just denotes minimum lot size. So R1 is our largest lot single family, and then R1C is our smallest lot single family zone district. So it just ranges in between with the A's and the B's. Along 32nd, towards the top of your screen here, you can see a parcel of A1 zoned property, which is used residentially. And then just a little pocket, there's like 2 properties that are zoned residential 3 along 32nd Avenue. I have a few pictures of the property here. The original structure on the property was constructed in 1920. It was utilized as a church for as far back as our records indicate. There's little information actually on this property. It looks like it may have actually been built as a church and just utilized as that for the last almost 100 years. The foundation for the structure is seen in the photo. The applicants were originally intending to remodel the church and use it as their house. However, when they pulled building permits, got in there, started working, and the structure was not as stably sound as they had originally thought it was. So they ended up having to demolish the structure and kind of come up with a plan B, which is the rezoning to subdivide off the rear portion of the lot and rezone it and still build their home on the existing foundation that you see here. This is a view of the property from 31st Avenue. The foundation can be seen in the background, and then the area in the foreground, which is kind of gravel, that would be the portion that they are currently under administrative review for a 2-lot subdivision. That is where the second house would be built on that rear portion there. Of course, pending approval of the zone change and subsequent administrative review of the subdivision. And this is just another image, this time looking northwest from Newland Street. The foundation is there. So the zoning comparison for the zone change request is relatively straightforward. The R2 allows for single-family homes and duplexes, depending on your lot size. This lot would be adequate, or is adequate, for a duplex. The R1C allows for only single-family homes with a smaller minimum lot size. The applicant desires to rezone the property to allow for 2 single-family homes rather than 1 duplex, which they could build currently on the property under the current zoning conditions with no other approvals than a building permit. It should be noted that all residential zone districts, including the existing and proposed, do allow for some other limited uses. That includes daycare, schools, government buildings. Many of these uses actually require special use permits, which is a public noticing land use case. If you were in the area, you would receive a notice if someone was trying to do a special use permit for their property. Or some of those uses also require a minimum of 1 acre of land. Some of the schools, I believe, and things like that require 1 acre of land, which this property is not adequately sized for. Quickly comparing the development standards for the R2 and the proposed R1C. Again, the use is single-family or duplex in the R2. The R1C is single-family only. Building heights are the same, 35 feet. However, the R1C does have an added bulk plane, which we recently went through, so that is in effect for the R1C zone districts. Setbacks are similar. The R1C is 4 smaller lots, so it does anticipate slightly smaller setbacks. And the major difference here is the minimum lot size. The R1C does permit for smaller lot sizes than for single-family homes in the R2. However, the bulk plane does provide some added protection to ensure that the development is compatible, and the use restriction of single-family only results in a land use pattern that is more compatible with the surrounding conditions than a duplex would, which again, the duplex is currently allowed under the current zoning. There was a neighborhood meeting held in March. 7 neighbors were in attendance. At the neighborhood meeting, it was contemplated that the applicants would rezone to R1B, which you may have seen in your exhibits on the sign-in sheet, which requires a slightly larger lot size than the R1C. However, rezoning to the R1B would require variances on the subdivision. So the R1C gets the same result, 2 single-family houses, but with no variances needed. No comments or concerns were received from utility agencies and other departments that were sent referrals during the referral period. And staff has received several letters regarding the rezoning, which have been attached and also just handed out to you. As the commissioners are aware, we use several criteria to evaluate a zone change request. Primary among them is consistency with the comprehensive plan. Staff does believe that the proposed R1C zoning is consistent with the policies and goals in the comp plan and Vision Wheat Ridge. The image here on your screen is an excerpt from the plan. The property is situated in an established neighborhood, as denoted on the comprehensive plan. This designation envisions residential uses consistent with the current residential neighborhood, and we find that this is met. Staff has concluded that the request does meet the zone change criteria. More extensive analysis is included in your staff report, but we'll summarize the findings here really quick. Given that the R1C will allow for similar low-intensity residential uses, staff believes that the zone change will not have an adverse effect on the public welfare. As I mentioned, staff finds the zone change to residential 1C supported by the comprehensive plan, and the R1C is compatible with the surrounding area, which is primarily single-family. For these reasons, staff recommends approval, and that concludes my presentation. I'd be happy to take any questions that you may have.
Thank you for that presentation. Commissioner Bowden.
Yes, based on a couple of the aerial photographs, Does the subject property fall short of, on the north side, short of 31st Avenue? Or does the property extend all the way to 31st Avenue?
Let's see here.
Yeah, there's a,
It's probably a dedicated right-of-way. Also, where we take these property lines are from Jefferson County parcel data, which is not always 100% correct when we lay it on top of our aerial imagery. So the lines that are here are not 100% accurate. They may be a couple of feet off. Also, 31st may be dedicated to that line that you see there.
Okay.
So then there is that strip of land that is actually in the city's right-of-way. And that's fairly common across the city. Things like that happen.
okay. And then just a little clarification on the zoning with relation to the newly implemented bulk plane. Which residential zoning is that, does that apply for now?
The bulk plan applies to residential 1C, which is what the applicants are proposing to rezone to, as well as single-family homes in the residential 3 zone district.
Okay, that's it.
Commissioner Buckman?
Just one clarification, if I could get one. You had mentioned that the applicants were hoping to administratively subdivide this back and front, or was it side to side?
The subdivision would go north and south.
North and south, so there'd be an east property and a west property.
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
Commissioner Dorsey?
I have no questions.
Commissioner Kimsey? Commissioner Voss?
Yes, just one. So where that foundation is, and if I read correctly, they were planning to use that as a building base. What kind of allowance for another building on that property then meets all the setbacks and all? Is it divided enough to meet that requirement?
Yes, so when they come through to subdivide, which they have submitted they've submitted a round of submittals, and we've provided comments back to them for the subdivision. The current structure, as well as any additional structures that would be built on the second lot, would need to be in compliance with all the development standards that I went through. So we would not allow them to subdivide the property with an inadequate rear setback or side setback, whatever that may be, to the
Right.
existing foundation.
So we don't quite know that yet, based on what they plan to build.
Know where the line will be, or
Whether the whole property is accommodating to that division.
yes, the subdivision will be compliant with all of the development standards.
It will? Oh,
Yes.
okay.
Commissioner Leo?
Yeah, I have one question. It's R2 currently.
Correct.
Doesn't R2 allow group homes of a certain size and a private daycare of a certain size, of certain accommodation if it's a private home?
Yes. Yeah,
So
most-
that's not going to make a difference, correct?
Correct. And actually, by subdividing the property and rezoning it, they're actually limiting those additional uses even more, because many of those uses, as I stated, need an acre of land. Some of them need 9,000 square feet of land, both of which the property currently has. But under the subdivision, neither property would have 9,000 square feet. They would both be, one would be about 7,000, one would be about 8,000. So they would not have the adequate land size to do many of those additional functions. I think the only one that they still might be able to do is a group home for children, but that would require a special use permit.
So in reading this letter, it sounds like it's reversed of what,
Correct.
okay. Okay, I just wanted to clarify that, thank you.
Commissioner Weaver? I just have two questions in the, this was after, might have been on the page 18. It talked about that there would be a variance, and maybe that was in relation to the R-1B. Is a variance required?
No.
Okay.
So with the R1B, there would have been a variance required, which is why they ended up going with the R1C. I believe both were presented during the neighborhood meeting, and they ended up, when they submitted their application, going with the R1C specifically so they would not have to go through the variance process in addition to the subdivision and zone change.
Okay. And one thing I didn't see a comparison is and it's, I think I won't have any issue, but what is the minimum lot width? Could you go over that for the R1C,
Sure.
specifically as we would propose to subdivide this, what would the minimum lot weight be for both lots?
Sure. So I actually have both right here, so I'll just, the R2 minimum lot width is 75 feet, the R1C is 50. But for both zone districts, for a corner lot, which this property would have at least one, or will have one, excuse me, the minimum lot width would be 80 for both.
Right.
So one would need to be 80 and one would need to be 50.
And so our total lot width is 130, right?
Right.
What we would need, and the applicant has, you said 148? Yes. And so going on what Commissioner Voss had said about there's an existing foundation that everything fits as it should with having the 50 and the 80
Correct.
in the setbacks.
Right.
Okay, no further questions. Does any other commissioners have any more questions for staff? Thank you. We would like to, if the applicant would like to come forward and present. Please state your name and address for the record.
My name is Kimiko Gustafson.
You can pull that microphone down however you.
My name is Kimiko Gustafson, and my husband's Brendan. We live at 6803 West 32nd Avenue in Wheat Ridge. The reason why I really wanted to be here is because I'm part of Wheat Ridge. My grandmother has lived on 32nd and Pierce since 1978, and we live in that house right now. However, it's a duplex, and it's on a busy street, and so when he saw this property, I was like, can we please move in? So that's kind of where I'm at right now.
Is there anything you?
Taking the time to listen to our story, it seems rather insignificant compared to other matters here, but it's important to us, and what we hope to do is develop two houses that the neighborhood can be proud of and that works well for our family and the community. So appreciate everybody's support.
Thank you. Let's see if the commissioners have any questions. Commissioner Bowden, Commissioner Bucknam, Commissioner Dorsey, Commissioner Kimsey, Commissioner Voss, Commissioner Weaver, Leo. Okay. I don't think I had any questions. Let's now open up the citizens forum. See if anybody has signed up to speak. Give me just 1 minute. I'll see who's on the list, and you'll definitely have a chance to speak. Okay, the first one here is Bill Tanner. If you could state your name and address for the record, please.
Bill Tanner, 6705 West 31st Avenue.
Thank you. Go ahead.
Now, when I read the zoning for 1C, I got concerned about what it might be used for. But the testimony here today makes it sound like it'd be less likely to be used for anything except two homes, which I welcome, and I welcome that family to the neighborhood. So my opposition has been withdrawn.
Okay, so I'll cross that off. Okay, thank you. A Jane Jones. Please state your name and address. You can adjust that microphone. Thank you.
My name is Jane Jones. I live at 6417 West 29th Avenue. We border, our property is on that stem road. So the backside of our property, we have over an acre, is on 30th Avenue. So we're over here on that block of ground at Lamar and 30th on this. And, you know, this is Michael and I purchased this as our dream retirement. And we love the area, and it's so quiet, and families and children and people walking dogs. So I did not want to see any commercial development of any kind. I wish this property would be rezoned to R1 so that this becomes more residential instead of, you know, a little more and less dense. You know, I sit and watch people walking up and down. And we also, some of us, we have a ditch lateral 77, which is our lifeblood that runs and cuts through here and along 31st. And so there's a steady flow of us going back and forth. One of the ladies, family who's on 31st right across from this property, recently came over with her daughter in the wheelbarrow, jogging down and coming up, and then coming up in the back side of our property there to the back house, because our legal address is on 29th, and that's where you access it, but we also have a road from the back. So maybe there is some R2 there, but this is an extremely small, neighborly, knowing group of people in this area, and we love it. So I wanted to clarify, it looks to me like the proposal would be to make 3 houses available on this property.
No, 2 houses can only be on that lot size.
Okay, so there's one where the existing foundation is?
Well, so the lot was 148 in
Mhm.
width, and you need 130 foot total for 2 lots. There's not enough room for a 3rd lot.
Okay. Okay, I was
staff
confused
could-
then.
Correct.
So,
One home on the existing foundation, and then one in the rear portion
and
of the
then
lot to the west.
in the rear portion of the lot to the west.
Mhm.
Okay.
Where I believe the parking area for the church used to be.
And so you're telling me that any of the uses that were left, that would be left because of the size restriction, is some kind of a daycare, home daycare, and that any of those things that are not already restricted because of the needing to be an acre, that they would require a special use permit, which would once again come to the community?
Correct.
Okay. Well, we came to try and keep the church from, on that corner across from this property, from doing a daycare center because of all of this foot traffic walking in that area, which is just wonderful and quiet. We don't want any other types of what you would call neighborhood. I don't call it neighborhood, I call it commercial, anything. So we'll be back if anybody puts a daycare home in. So I guess I'm agreeable, was very alarmed to see it looking like all of these things could be placed on that property with us. So I am not opposed.
Thank you. The next one is a Glenn. Please come forward. Are you Glenn?
I'd give you my history, but I'll fall asleep. My name is Joe Drew. I live at 6660 West 29th Avenue, right across the street from Stites Park. I've lived there. We built a house on my wife's grandparents' land 35 years ago. I've driven by the property on Newland. I can't remember the last time there was a church service held there, but it's been many, many years. It's been vacant as far as, so I've always been concerned about what's going to happen in there. Knowing a little bit about the zoning of R2 and going to the proposed zoning, to me, seems like a very favorable situation. It seems like the neighborhood gains something rather than loses something by having that zoning change. So I am totally in favor of the zoning change.
Thank you. Was there a Glenn in the audience? Did you want to come forward? Okay. A Michael Corey? No comment, okay. Any Dave Fisher?
Yes, I do.
Yes. State your name and address, please.
Michael Corey, 6417 West 29th Avenue. May I make a political statement? Staff says that this property has, in all memory, been a church. I just hear it's been a vacant church. It's not been in use. As I understand this property has been sitting here for the last 30 years not paying any property tax. This is not the fault of the current owner, but whoever owned this property before, I'm guessing, didn't pay any property tax for 20 or 30 years. So that's my political sentiment.
Thank you. Dave Fisher? Is there Dave Fisher in the audience? Does anybody else, that's everybody that's on the sign-up sheet. Does anybody else in the audience want to come forward and make a statement? If not, I will close the citizens forum. Okay, is there I would entertain a motion.
I'd like to make a motion. Excuse me. I move to recommend approval of case number WZ 1704, a request for approval of a zone change from residential 2 to residential 1C for property located at 6610 West 31st Avenue for the following reasons. I'm going to move these reasons around because I think this first one is really important. The zone change will result in a single-family development which is consistent with the predominant land use in the area. The proposed zone change will promote the public health, safety, or welfare of the community and does not result in an adverse effect on the surrounding area. The proposed zone change is consistent with the goals and objectives of the city's comprehensive plan. The zone change will provide additional opportunity for reinvestment in the area, and the criteria used to evaluate a zone change support this request.
Second.
Is there any discussion? I just want to have one comment that I'm glad that there were no variances, that staff worked with the applicant. I would have been opposed had there been a variance to have a smaller width, so thank you. Okay, call for a vote.
Motion carried 8-0.
Thank you. Okay, let's go to our next case. I open the public hearing for case number WZ-17-04, an application filed by Ryan and Lisa Conway for approval of a zone change from Commercial 1 to mixed-use neighborhood located at 6375 West 44th Avenue, and ask for the staff report.
Good evening again. Again, for the record, Zach Wallace-Mendez, planner with the City of Wheat Ridge Community Development Department. Tonight I will be presenting case number WZ-1704, request for approval of a zone change from Commercial 1 to mixed-use neighborhood on property located at 6375 West 44th Avenue. I'd like to enter into the public record the contents of the case file, zoning ordinance, comprehensive plan, and this digital presentation. Property is within the City of Wheat Ridge. All appropriate notification and posting requirements have been met, and therefore the Planning Commission does have jurisdiction to hear the case.
So noted.
Subject property is outlined here in red. It's located on the north side of 44th, roughly parallel with Lamar Street. The city's newest park, Hopper Hollow, borders the subject property to the east and north. The parcel is approximately 12,800 square feet in size, rectangular in shape, and no irregularities. I don't know why I can't say that word, I apologize. As far as shape or topography, the width of the frontage along 44th is approximately 70 feet. The zoning in the area is what we like to refer to as that patchwork quilt. The property itself is currently zoned Commercial 1. In the immediate vicinity, there are multiple zone districts. To the north, R3 and R2, Hopper Hollow Park to the northeast, and multifamily residential to the northwest. To the west is another property zoned MUN. It was rezoned in 2014 to utilize as a live-work property. Also to the west is some neighborhood commercial, which is less intensive commercial zone district, allows for more neighborhood serving commercial properties, retail properties, not as intensive as the current C1 that the subject property is zoned. To the east is C1, which is occupied by Hopper Hollow Park. And to the south, there's a mix of RC and NC, restricted commercial and neighborhood commercial. Again, those are less intensive than the Commercial 1, allow for kind of smaller businesses, smaller retail, smaller offices. And then further to the south is Residential 2, which is, as we just heard, a single family and duplex zone district. Some images of the property here. This is the view from 44th Avenue, roughly parallel to the eastern property line. The structure was originally built in 1942 as a home. At some point, it was converted to a commercial structure, I believe before city records, because we have no record of that. But our records do indicate that it was most recently used as an engineering office, a church, an adult daycare facility, and a retail store. So it's seen a lot of uses, and the current owners just want to put it back to a residential use. Being converted to a home, the property retains its original residential character. And this is a view from the property from inside Hopper Hollow Park. As I previously noted, Hopper Hollow does border the property to both the east and the north. The purpose of the zone change request is to allow for the residential use of the property, in addition to allowing for the possibility in the future for the owner to utilize the property for both their home and business as a mixed use or live-work property. The slide shows how we treat residential uses in commercial zone districts, including the current zoning C1. An existing residence can remain a residential or convert to a commercial use. For an existing commercial use, such as the subject site, you cannot change or revert back to a residence. In this case, the applicant is seeking to convert the property back to its residential use, original residential use, as we believe. Because this isn't permitted under the existing C1 zoning, they are proposing to rezone the property to the mixed-use neighborhood zone district. The mixed-use neighborhood zone district is actually a little more restrictive in terms of its commercial uses. As I stated before, the C1 is a wide range of commercial, regional serving commercial and retail uses, whereas the mixed-use neighborhood allows for smaller scale neighborhood-oriented commercial businesses and retail businesses. In addition to the MUN allowing for the residential component of the property in whole or part. So the development standards for the proposed and existing zone districts are shown on your screen here. There are similar architectural standards for both. The mixed-use zone district is governed by the mixed-use code. And then the C1, there's an overlay in this area, so it is governed by the architectural and site design manual. They both have pretty similar characteristics. So there's not much different in the architecture that will result of a new development. I should note that the applicant is not proposing any new development of the property. This table compares the proposed and existing standards if the property were ever to redevelop. So getting back to the chart, sorry. The building height is a maximum of 50 feet currently in the C1 zone district. In the MUN, it does allow up to 50 feet for commercial uses, but if there's any residential component, the maximum is 35 feet, which is consistent with our current residential zone districts. They have the same build to 0 to 12 feet for 60% of the structure. Setbacks are similar. The C1 has a little bit more of a rear setback, but they both allow for 0 foot setbacks on their sides if the property is non-flammable. The lot coverage is a little less. The ratio of building coverage to open space is similar, with slightly reduced landscape coverage for the new development under MUN. And that relates to the lot coverage as well. They're reverse. There was a neighborhood meeting held in April. There were 4 neighbors in attendance. Staff has not been contacted during the public noticing period with any letters. No comments or concerns from utility agencies or other departments during the referral period. And if the zone change is approved, the applicant would then need to be in touch with the building division in order to receive a residential certificate of occupancy and complete any work needed for the conversion back to a residence. Again, an important part of any zone change request is compliance with the comprehensive plan. As you can see here, the property outlined in that blue color there is located along 44th. 44th is a neighborhood commercial corridor. And because MUN allows for a mix of uses, it is appropriate as a transitional zone district between 44th Avenue and the neighborhood, established neighborhood to the north. The comprehensive plan does encourage a mix of uses in the neighborhood commercial corridors, which the MUN zone district would allow for. Staff has concluded that the request does meet the zone change criteria. Again, a more extensive analysis is found in your staff report, but I'll quickly summarize. Staff finds the zone change to mixed-use neighborhood supported by the comprehensive plan. Given that the MUN will allow for similar commercial uses at a lower intensity and residential uses, staff believes the zone change will not have an adverse effect on the public welfare. The zoning is compatible with the surrounding area, which already includes a mix of land uses, as we remember from the zone map. And for these reasons, we recommend approval. That concludes my presentation. I'd be happy to take any questions.
Thank you. Commissioner Bowden?
So if this zone change were to take place and somebody moved into this structure and lived out of there, does staff see any conflict with behavior that could be suitable for someone's backyard, might not be suitable for a public park when there aren't really any fences or visual separation of residential from the park, which is so close?
No. I mean, I suppose situations could arise. They do have the option of fencing in their property. We allow 6-foot fences to be built. And I guess the same could be said for any number of properties that border the park on the north, east, and west.
Okay, that's it.
Commissioner Muckin? Commissioner Dorsey? Commissioner Kimsey? Commissioner Voss? Commissioner Leo? Commissioner Weber? I have no questions. Could we hear from the applicant? Please state your name and address for the record.
My name's Ryan Conway. We live at 3156 West 38th Avenue in Denver.
Thank you.
We don't have any additional presentation, just have to answer questions.
Thank you. Do any of the commissioners have questions for the applicant? No questions.
We may consider a fence just to stop all the people from bringing their dogs.
I would now like to open up the citizens forum. Is there anybody that signed up to speak? No? There's one person in the audience, if you'd care to speak or not. No? I will close the citizens forum. At this point, I would entertain a motion.
I move to recommend the approval of case number WZ-17-04, a request for approval of a zone change from Commercial 1, C1 to Mixed-Use Neighborhood, MUN, for the property located at 6375 West 44th Avenue for the following reasons. Number one, the proposed zone change will promote the public health, safety, and welfare of the community and does not result in an adverse effect on the surrounding area. Number two, utility infrastructure adequately services the property. And number three, the proposed zone change is consistent with the goals and objectives of the city's comprehensive plan and consistent with the character of 44th Avenue.
What about the next page?
Thank you. Number four, the zone change will provide additional opportunity for reinvestment in the area. And number five, the criteria used to evaluate a zone change support the request.
Is there a second?
I second.
Any discussion? Call for a vote.
Motion carried 8-0.
Thank you. We will now move on to other items.
Staff has nothing to report except for Zach is back, and we're glad to have him.
Keep him busy. Okay. Is there any other items any of the commissioners want to discuss, or is there a motion to adjourn?
I move to.
I move to adjourn.
I'll second.
Call for a vote.
Motion passed 8-0.
Thank you.